Emily Thompson finished another long shift at St. Mary's Hospital, her scrubs wrinkled and her feet aching from hours of running between rooms. The hospital was old and overcrowded, with flickering lights, broken equipment, and not enough staff to handle the flood of patients. But Emily didn't complain, she never did. She just worked harder, staying late to check on patients or helping clean up when the janitorial crew fell behind. At 29, Emily felt like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her mom, Linda, had been diagnosed with diabetes last year, and the medical bills were piling up faster than Emily could pay them off. On top of that, her younger brother, Jake, was in college on a partial scholarship, but the rest of his tuition came out of Emily's paycheck. She often skipped meals to save money, telling herself it didn't matter as long as her family was okay. Despite all the stress, Emily had a gift for making people feel cared for. Whether it was holding an elderly patient's hand during chemo or calming a scared child with a silly joke, she went above and beyond every day. Her coworkers admired her kindness, though they sometimes teased her about working herself too hard. "You can't pour from an empty cup," her best friend and fellow nurse Maria said one evening as they clocked out together. "You're going to burn out if you keep this up." "I'll be fine," Emily replied with a tired smile. "Besides, who else is going to take care of these folks?" Maria shook her head but didn't argue. She knew there was no stopping Emily once she set her mind to something. That night, as Emily walked through the dimly lit halls of the hospital, she stopped by room 307 to check on a new patient, a man admitted earlier that day under the name John Smith. He was recovering from surgery and hadn't spoken much since arriving. From what little Emily had seen, he seemed quiet and reserved, keeping to himself and avoiding eye contact. "Good evening, Mr. Smith," Emily said softly, stepping into the room. "How are you feeling tonight?" The man looked up, his piercing blue eyes meeting hers for the first time. For a brief moment, Emily felt like he was studying her. Not just her face, but everything about her. Then he gave a small nod. "I'm doing all right, thank you," he said, his voice low and steady. "And you? You look exhausted." Emily blinked, surprised by his observation. Most patients barely noticed how tired she was. "Oh, I'm used to it," she said lightly. "It's part of the job." He nodded again, his expression unreadable. "You're very good at your job, Ms. Thompson," she supplied. "Emily Thompson." "Well, Miss Thompson," he said, his tone thoughtful, "you deserve more than exhaustion. Don't forget to take care of yourself, too." His words lingered in her mind as she left the room. There was something about him, something different, that she couldn't quite put her finger on. Little did she know, this mysterious patient would soon change her life in ways she never imagined. Over the next few days, Emily found herself thinking about John Smith more than she expected. He wasn't like the other patients. For one thing, he barely needed any care. His recovery was going smoothly, and he rarely asked for anything. But what stood out most was how closely he seemed to watch her. Whenever Emily entered his room to check his vitals or deliver medication, she'd catch him observing her with those sharp blue eyes. At first, it made her uncomfortable, like she was being studied under a microscope. But as the days passed, she realized he wasn't judging her. He was noticing things about her that no one else did. One afternoon, while adjusting his foredrip, Emily noticed him staring again. "Is there something wrong?" she asked, feeling self-conscious. "No," he replied, shaking his head slightly. "I'm just curious. About you." "Curious?" Emily raised an eyebrow, unsure if she should laugh or be concerned. He hesitated before speaking. "You work harder than anyone else here. You skip breaks, stay late, and still manage to smile when you're clearly exhausted. Why do you do it?" Emily blinked, caught off guard by the question. No one had ever asked her that before, not directly, at least. "It's my job," she said simply. "People need help, so I help them." "But why you?" he pressed gently. "Why take on all this responsibility? Don't you have dreams of your own?" Emily paused, unsure how to answer. She hadn't thought about her dreams in years. Not since money got tight and survival became her top priority. "I guess I want to open a free clinic someday," she admitted quietly. A place where people who can't afford healthcare can get the treatment they need. But right now, I'm just trying to keep my family afloat. The man nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. That's a noble goal, he said. If anyone could make it happen, it's someone like you. His words stayed with her long after she left the room. There was something oddly familiar about the way he spoke. Like he knew what it meant to dream big but also wrestle with limitations. Still, she pushed the thought aside and focused on her work. After all, mysterious patients weren't exactly rare in a place like St. Mary's. But James Whittaker, because that was his real name, wasn't letting Emily slip from his mind so easily. From the moment he arrived at the hospital, he'd been captivated by her. Her kindness wasn't forced or performative. It came naturally, like breathing. And yet, he could see the weight she carried. The exhaustion in her eyes, the frayed edges of her scrubs, the faint worry lines etched into her forehead. James himself had spent decades building an empire, climbing higher and higher until he reached the pinnacle of success. But along the way, he'd lost sight of what truly mattered: connection, purpose, humanity. Now, watching Emily reminded him of everything he'd forgotten. She gave freely without expecting anything in return. He, on the other hand, had hoarded his wealth for far too long. By the end of the week, James decided to test the waters. When Emily brought him dinner one evening, he casually asked, "Do you ever feel like life is unfair? Like no matter how hard you try, things never seem to get easier?" Emily froze, spoon halfway to his tray. It was such a personal question, one she didn't expect from a patient. Then again, maybe it wasn't so strange coming from someone recovering from surgery, someone who might be reflecting on their own life. "I think we all feel that way sometimes," she said carefully. "But I don't believe in giving up. If I stop fighting for my family, who will?" Her answer struck a chord deep within James. Here was a woman who fought not for herself, but for others. A woman who refused to let circumstances break her spirit. In that moment, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. The following day, James called his assistant on a secure line. "I need you to look into someone," he instructed. "Her name is Emily Thompson. Find out everything you can about her, her debts, her family, her goals. And make sure no one knows I'm involved." "Yes, Mr. Whittaker," the assistant replied, already typing notes. As James hung up, he leaned back against his pillow, a small smile playing on his lips. For the first time in years, he felt alive, with purpose, with hope, with the chance to make a difference. And Emily would be the first step in his journey toward redemption. A week later, Emily's life started to change in ways she couldn't explain. It began with something small, a letter in the mail from the hospital billing department. She opened it nervously, bracing herself for another overdue notice. But instead of a bill, the letter said her mother's outstanding medical debt had been fully paid off. "What?" Emily muttered, staring at the paper in disbelief. "This has to be a mistake." She called the billing office immediately, only to be told that an anonymous donor had covered the entire amount. The representative on the phone sounded as confused as Emily felt. "Are you sure this isn't some kind of clerical error?" Emily asked, gripping the phone tightly. "No errors here," the rep assured her. "The funds were transferred directly into our account. Everything checks out." Emily hung up, still processing what had happened. Who would do something like this? And why hadn't they left a name? Then came the next surprise. A few days later, Jake texted Emily, ecstatic. I got the full scholarship," he wrote. "They said my financial aid package was updated. And now I don't have to worry about tuition anymore." Emily's heart raced. This wasn't part of the original plan. She'd been preparing to take out yet another loan to cover Jake's expenses. Something strange was going on, but she didn't know who to thank. At first, she thought maybe Maria or one of her coworkers had organized a fundraiser behind her back. But when she asked around, no one claimed responsibility. The biggest shock came 2 weeks later. Emily received an official-looking envelope in the mail. Inside was a grant award letter from a foundation she'd never heard of. The grant covered all the costs associated with opening her dream-free clinic. Rent for the space, equipment purchases, staffing salaries, even marketing expenses. Emily sat down hard on her couch, tears streaming down her face. How was this possible? Was it luck, charity, or something else entirely? Her mind kept drifting back to James Whittaker, or rather, John Smith. He had seemed so interested in her dreams and struggles during their conversations. Could he have something to do with these sudden blessings? But how would he even know about her debts or Jake's tuition? Determined to find answers, Emily decided to visit him the next time she worked. When she walked into his room, she found him sitting up in bed, reading a book. "Good morning, Miss Thompson," he said warmly, setting the book aside. "Mr. Smith," Emily began, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to ask you something. Have you done anything recently to help me or my family?" James raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "Help you? Whatever do you mean?" Emily hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "My mom's medical bills, they've been paid off. My brother got his tuition covered. And I just received funding for my free clinic project. None of it makes sense. No one will tell me who's responsible." James chuckled softly, leaning back against his pillows. "Sounds like you've had quite the streak of good fortune." "Yes, but why?" Emily pressed, frustration creeping into her tone. "Who's doing this? If it's you, please tell me. I deserve to know." James studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled faintly. "Let's just say someone believes in you, Ms. Thompson. Someone who thinks the world could use more people like you." "But why stay anonymous?" Emily demanded, her emotions getting the better of her. "Why not let me thank you properly?" "Because gratitude isn't necessary," James replied gently. "Sometimes the best gifts are those given without strings attached. Just focus on making your dreams come true. You'll understand someday." Emily left the room feeling both grateful and conflicted. Whoever was helping her clearly meant well, but accepting such generosity felt complicated. Still, she couldn't deny the relief washing over her shoulders. For the first time in years, she dared to hope for a brighter future. For weeks, Emily wrestled with the mystery of her benefactor. Every time she thought about the anonymous gifts, her mind circled back to James Whittaker, or John Smith, as he called himself. His words during their last conversation echoed in her head. "Someone believes in you." It was clear he knew more than he let on. But why wouldn't he admit it outright? Then one evening, everything changed. Emily was working a late shift when Maria approached her with an urgent message. "There's someone waiting for you in the lounge," she said. "He says it's important." Confused, Emily hurried to the staff lounge. When she opened the door, she froze. Sitting at the small table was James Whittaker, no longer dressed in hospital scrubs but in a tailored suit, looking every bit the billionaire he truly was. "Mr. Whittaker?" Emily gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be recovering?" James stood up, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. "I needed to speak with you," he said simply. "Privately." Emily nodded, still reeling from seeing him outside of his hospital room, and looking so different. She closed the door behind her and took a seat across from him. "I assume you've figured out by now that I'm not just John Smith," James began, leaning forward slightly. "You're a billionaire," Emily said slowly, piecing things together. "And you've been helping me this whole time." James didn't deny it. Instead, he nodded, his expression calm but sincere. "Yes, I wanted to repay you for everything you've done, not just for me, but for everyone around you." "But why?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "Why me? We barely know each other." "That's where you're wrong," James replied softly. "I've watched you, Emily. I've seen how hard you work, how selflessly you give, even when you have nothing left to give. You remind me of who I used to be before money became my entire life." Emily frowned, unsure what to say. Part of her felt grateful, but another part felt uneasy. Accepting help from a stranger, even a wealthy one, felt like admitting defeat. "I don't want charity," she said firmly. "I can take care of myself." "It's not charity," James countered quickly. "It's investment. In you, in your dreams, in the lives you'll touch through your clinic. Do you think I'd throw away millions on someone unworthy? No, I chose you because you deserve it. Because the world needs more people like you. His words hit her like a wave, stirring emotions she hadn't fully processed yet. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. What do you get out of this? She asked quietly. Helping me, I mean, why go to all this trouble? James hesitated, his gaze dropping to the table for a moment. When he looked up again, there was vulnerability in his eyes, a side of him she hadn't seen before. Redemption, he admitted. For years, I built my fortune without thinking about the cost. To others, to myself, to my soul. Watching you reminded me of what really matters. Compassion, purpose, humanity. By helping you, maybe I can start making amends for the damage I've done. Emily stared at him, overwhelmed by the weight of his confession. Here was a man who had everything: money, power, success, but carried scars far deeper than any physical injury. I don't know what to say, she whispered finally. You don't have to say anything, James replied with a small smile. Just promise me one thing. Use this opportunity to create something meaningful, something that will change lives, including yours. As Emily left the lounge that night, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Gratitude, confusion, fear, hope. They all swirled together, leaving her uncertain about what came next. But one thing was clear. James Whittaker wasn't just changing her life. He was challenging her to see herself differently. And that scared her more than anything. The days that followed James's revelation were some of the hardest Emily had ever faced. On one hand, she couldn't deny how much his gifts had already changed her life, for the better. Her mother's medical bills were gone. Jake could finish college without worrying about debt, and her dream clinic was finally within reach. But on the other hand, accepting such generosity felt like losing control over her own destiny. I don't want to owe anyone, Emily confided in Maria during a rare break at the hospital. What if he expects something from me later? What if this comes with strings I didn't see? Maria tilted her head thoughtfully. From what you've told me, it doesn't sound like he wants anything in return. Maybe he just believes in you. But why should he decide my future? Emily shot back, frustration bubbling over. I've spent years fighting for everything I have. Why does someone else get to swoop in and fix it all? Maria sighed, placing a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. I get it, you're proud. You've earned every bit of what you've achieved. But sometimes, pride can hold us back from seeing the bigger picture. This isn't just about you anymore. Think about your mom, your brother, the patients who'll benefit from your clinic. Isn't that worth swallowing a little pride? Emily didn't respond right away. She knew Maria had a point, but it still didn't sit well with her. Deep down, she worried that accepting James's help would make her dependent on him, or worse, erase all the sacrifices she'd made to get this far. Her doubts only grew when whispers began spreading around the hospital. Someone, probably another nurse, had seen James visiting Emily in the lounge and reported it to the staff. Rumors started flying. Was Emily secretly dating a billionaire? Had she traded favors for his money? One afternoon, as Emily walked through the hallway, she overheard two co-workers gossiping. I heard she's been sneaking him into the supply closet, one joked, laughing cruelly. She's probably using him to pay off her debts, the other added. Can't blame her, though. Who wouldn't? Emily felt a pang of anger and shame. She hated that people thought less of her because of something she hadn't even asked for. Did they really believe she was the kind of person who'd exploit someone for money? That evening, she called James, her voice tight with emotion. We need to talk, she said bluntly. They met at a quiet cafe near the hospital. James arrived looking polished as always, but there was concern in his eyes when he saw Emily's tense expression. What's wrong? He asked, sitting down across from her. People are talking, Emily blurted out. They think I'm using you, or worse, that I'm letting you buy my loyalty. I hate feeling like I've lost control of my reputation because of your gifts. James frowned, clearly taken aback. I never intended for this to hurt you, he said sincerely. If it's causing problems, we can figure something else out. It's not just that, Emily admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I keep wondering, is this fair? To take so much from you when I barely know you? What if your wealth came from unethical sources? What if helping me is just another way to ease your guilt? James leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. For a moment, he looked defensive, but then his expression softened. You're right to ask those questions, he said quietly. And I won't lie to you. My past isn't perfect. My company has made mistakes, ones I deeply regret. But I'm trying to make amends now. Helping you isn't about erasing my guilt. It's about proving that I can use what I have to do good. If you don't trust my intentions, I understand. But please don't let fear or pride stop you from achieving your dreams. Emily stared at him, torn between her instincts and her principles. Finally, she spoke. I'll accept your help, she said slowly, but only under one condition. I want to work with you, not for you. We'll be partners in this, equals. No secrets, no strings attached. James smiled, relief washing over his face. Deal, he said firmly. For the first time since this whirlwind began, Emily felt a glimmer of peace. It wasn't going to be easy, but maybe, with boundaries and mutual respect, she could find a way forward. With their new agreement in place, Emily and James dove into the project of opening the free clinic. For Emily, it was a dream come true, but also a learning experience. Working alongside James taught her things she'd never considered before, like how to navigate legal paperwork, negotiate contracts, and manage budgets. At first, she felt overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. But James was patient, guiding her without taking over. You're doing great, he told her one evening as they reviewed plans for the clinic's grand opening. This is your vision, Emily. I'm just here to support it. His words meant a lot to her. Over time, she began to see him not just as a benefactor but as a mentor, and, eventually, a friend. Their partnership wasn't always smooth. There were moments of tension, especially when Emily pushed back against decisions she didn't agree with. But they worked through those challenges together, building trust along the way. The day the clinic opened was nothing short of magical. The small building on the edge of town had been transformed into a beacon of hope. Bright murals covered the walls, donated furniture filled the waiting area, and shelves stocked with medical supplies lined the exam rooms. Dozens of people showed up for the ribbon-cutting ceremony: patients, volunteers, local leaders, and even reporters eager to cover the story. Standing at the podium, Emily looked out at the crowd, her heart swelling with gratitude. This clinic wouldn't exist without the love and dedication of so many people, she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. But I want to take a moment to thank someone special, someone who believed in me when I doubted myself. She turned to where James stood near the back of the crowd, watching quietly. James Whitaker could have used his wealth for anything, to build monuments to himself or live comfortably behind closed doors. Instead, he chose to invest in something bigger than both of us. A place where people can find healing and hope. For that, I'll always be grateful. The crowd erupted into applause, turning to look at James. He smiled modestly but didn't step forward to speak. This was Emily's moment, and he knew it. After the ceremony, as volunteers welcomed the first patients inside, Emily pulled James aside. I meant what I said up there, she told him earnestly. Thank you for everything. Not just the money, but for believing in me. You've changed my life in ways I'll never forget. James shook his head, his expression soft. You're the one who's changing lives, Emily. I'm just lucky to be part of it. Over the following months, the clinic became a cornerstone of the community. Families who couldn't afford healthcare finally had access to doctors, medications, and treatments. Local teens volunteered after school, gaining valuable experience while giving back. Even Emily's mom started volunteering at the front desk, greeting patients with warmth and kindness. For James, the clinic represented more than just a charitable act. It was proof that he could still make a difference. Through supporting Emily's mission, he found purpose again, bridging the gap between his past mistakes and a brighter future. People began to see him differently, too, not as the ruthless billionaire from headlines, but as someone committed to using his resources for good. One evening, as Emily and James sat together on the clinic steps watching the sunset, Emily broke the comfortable silence. "What's next for you?" she asked curiously. "Now that the clinic's up and running, are you going to disappear back into your billionaire world?" James chuckled, shaking his head. "Not quite. There's still so much work to do. So many communities that need help. Maybe we'll open another clinic somewhere else. Or maybe I'll focus on mentoring others like you, people with big dreams and strong hearts." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't expected. "You're not the same man I met in that hospital room, you know?" "No," James agreed, his voice thoughtful. "And neither are you." In the end, their journey wasn't just about money or miracles, it was about connection. Two people from vastly different worlds had found common ground, proving that kindness, humility, and second chances could transform lives, including their own. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting tales about courage, compassion, and the power of second chances. Let us know in the comments. What would you do if an anonymous benefactor changed your life overnight? Your thoughts inspire us to keep creating stories that matter.